let's just sew whatever.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to be cutting out the Oxbow tote from Noodlehead Patterns. I made the overnight size and it's huge, but I'm obsessed with it. I did an applique front part on this vinyl slip pocket and then quilted with foam quilt cotton. And this bag comes together super quick. It's very eye-catching and like it's a very basic tote, but there's some things that make it not so basic. So I'm super excited to do this video tutorial. We are going to be doing the normal size, so make sure when you're cutting out your bag, you look at the measurements and brackets. I did not when I cut out these handles, but it still works. They're just little grab handles, so not worried about it, but I'm excited. Let's dive right in. To go over the materials that we'll be using, I am using 1.5 inch wide webbing. I think you could also use 1 inch wide webbing if you'd prefer. I'm going to be using this clay vinyl that I sell on my website for the base of the bag, and I think I'm going to add a zipper pocket inside the bag as well. I think it'll look nice. I am using a quilting cotton, just a cotton woven from my website as well. I'm going to be using Sew Fuse interfacing, and then I'm going to be using foam and Decovil Heavy. Waterproof canvas for my lining. So I'll go ahead and start cutting out the base of the bag. I have my heat press going so that when I have my stabilizers ready, I can just press them on. I prefer to use measurements when I cut, so I will be using a ruler to cut out some pieces. And then for the main panel, when you're quilting it, there are instructions given to cut that piece out a little bit bigger, quilt it, and then cut your pattern piece so that it's more accurate. So we're going to be doing that as well. So I'm not going to be giving out any measurements if I can help it. You'll just want to follow those pattern pieces. This is so much smaller than the other one, so I'm like, is this right? I was also thinking that a little handle accent might be super cute. I know there's a strap holder pattern piece, and I think that's actually for if you're not using webbing. Could use that. I don't know, just like a wrap on the handle at the top would be super cute, so I might try that. Especially since I have this little scrap here. No other plans for it, so why not? And then I'm going to grab my Decovil Heavy. And cut out that stabilizer. And this is cut to a different width, but the same length. So you want the stabilizer to extend the entire length of the panel for stability. There is an option in the pattern to add like a magnetic snap to the front pocket. So if you have any leftover stabilizer, you could use that to interface that area. And a little something I've been doing recently, if I don't want my stabilizer to shift, I'll add some double-sided tape and stick it on until my heat press is ready. and then it won't shift around on me while I'm waiting to press it. And like I said, that goes end to end on the bottom panel and centered about 1/2 inch from each edge. We will still need to cut out our lining fabric with that. And then we've got our handle reinforcement piece. I think I will use the measurements for the strap holder, even though it's meant for something else, because I think that'll wrap around. Yeah. See how it just kind of wraps around, and it'll be like a pop on the bag. You stay there. And then before you even get to your machine, if you've got tape at your cutting station, you could just add a little bit to the ends since you'll be wrapping it around. And the tape I'm using is from Weft and Warp Co., but I do sell it on my website as well. Oh. And then I like to keep all of the pieces I'm cutting in a little project bin for later, in case I'm cutting out a bunch of stuff at once or something. Okay, I have a piece here that'll be big enough for my zipper overlay. So I'm going to cut that to 2 by 11. And that's going to give me a 9-inch zipper pocket inside. And if you're not sure what size zipper pocket you'd want to make, you could kind of see here a 12-inch overlay actually would look really nice inside. Let's just do that. So that would be then a 10-inch zipper pocket. And you would want to cut your lining pieces to 12 wide by however deep you're thinking. And then just be very careful as you cut your pieces that everything is as straight as you can get it. And if you need to like overcut on one side so you can trim it to match, just make sure that you do the straightest cut you can so it doesn't look weird in the end. And then my other little trick for an overlay is to measure 0.75 in from the short edges. And then I'll take a rotary cutter and my ruler and measure 0.75 up. Carefully cut as close to those lines as you can. And then any lines left, just carefully take the sharpest pair of scissors you have, cut up into the line you made, and then cross over. And then you've got a little zipper overlay. You may need to take a lighter around the edges. And then I use 1/8 inch wide double-sided tape on this piece. On the topmost edge. And then that'll be prepped later for us as well. And we'll have our overlay. So I need to remember I also need to cut from my lining, let's see, maybe a 12 by 9 zipper pocket lining. So I now have the bottom of my bag interfaced. I'm going to set that in the bin. And then I measured the main panel to get a guesstimate of how large I want to cut that exterior piece. And I've gone about 1.5 inches wider and 1.5 inches taller, just to make up for any shrinkage. So we'll go ahead and cut that out because I do need to interface it and my heat press has warmed up. So it just makes sense. I'm not going to be using my pattern piece for the exterior. I'm just going to use those measurements and then I will cut it out once I've done the quilting. I am going to use the interfacing first. I'm going to cut that, press it, and then cut because I don't need my exterior to be a precise cut. I'll just add the interfacing and be done with it. This is also kind of a fun idea if you want to quilt, like actually piece together your panel. That would be pretty cool. Okay. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm also going to need to cut foam to the same measurement. You could also use batting, but I find that the foam gives so much structure. That's, well, I'll need to interface my front pocket too. So we'll leave that out for a minute. And I'll cut that too. Front pocket is so small compared to the overnight size. Cool. There. So I'm going to cut one of these out of the waterproof canvas and one out of my cotton print. You could choose to add 2 of these pockets, one on each side of the bag, which would be fun. Okay, so now I've got my interfacing to lay on my fabric on top of the heat press. So I'm also going to grab a pair of scissors so that I can kind of rough cut the piece once it's interfaced. Nice. If your interfacing is wrinkly, you can press it for a little bit first to make sure those wrinkles are out, and then fully press. And I do about 10 to 15 seconds. Dry heat. And let that cool. Okay, there's a little section that didn't fuse, so I'll press that one more time. You could press both layers at once, but I don't find that it presses as consistently as I'd like it to. Like, you'd still end up having to press it again. And then if you have a piece for that front pocket you'd want to kind of fussy cut, you could lay your interfacing on top and kind of rough cut it and then press it. And then that is pretty much it that we need for exterior fabric. So I'm gonna put my interfacing away and grab my foam. And this does use quite a bit of foam, but it's worth it. At least I think it's worth it. And it's up to you if you want to fuse the foam first. The rougher side is the side you can interface. So I'm going to press it. Usually with foam you need moisture to adhere it fully. So at least with a dry, it won't be fully adhered. I don't know, I just don't think it matters. You're going to quilt it. But you also don't want too much separation either. So. So now you can quilt this panel. Oh, it just feels so nice. It's like soft, gorgeous. I can't wait. Okay. It makes me laugh. The wrinkles on my Teflon sheet show up, which makes sense. I was thinking it might look nice with like a grid quilting, but I think I might just go crazy and do some squiggles. We'll go ahead and finish cutting out the rest of our bag though, and then if I don't show you in this video, I will show it in the sewing video, the quilting process. Then you can save all those little strips for the rosy bag or some other fun little bag. So we still need to cut our lining, and then it's like ready to go. It's so quick. The webbing is given in the pattern, and after you cut your webbing, you've got some marks to make on it as well. So don't forget to do that. This webbing I'm using, I believe, is from Zipper Valley. So pretty. I also love that the gradient is so close to being exact. Okay. So then in between those marks is where we fold it and top stitch. So I'm just going to add one piece of double-sided tape in between those marks on one side. That's where we'll fold it toward, just so I have that later. And then on the bottom of this, I'm going to add some 1/2 inch in the center, because we're going to be attaching this to the front panel over the pocket. So that'll just make it that much faster when we are at our machine. Okay. Lining. Okay. So I've got this little piece here. Just gonna rough cut, clip it together, and when I sew it, I'll trim it all down. I can trim off a little bit. The waterproof canvas is going to give the bag quite a bit more structure, so that'll be nice. Okay. So this is a nice big open area that I can fold and lay this piece down on. And there is a subtle curve to the bottom of this, so make sure that you keep as much of the pattern integrity as possible when you're cutting this out. Definitely mark your centers. Okay. All right, we've got to cut out the bottom panel. You could use measurements, or I'm just going to lay this down, cut around it. All right. And zipper pocket. If you would like to add a slip pocket, the measurements in this bag given would work just fine. There's one. There's two. Strap connectors if you want to add the D-rings for a crossbody. I could even just use waterproof canvas so that it's not too thick. I added 1.5 inch D-rings, or I added 3/4 inch D-rings. So you would cut this to 1.5 wide for a single fold. And then I can just fold this in the center and slide in those D-rings. And then we'll need to grab our zipper tape, but other than that, we're pretty much done cutting. It's not a lot of pieces. I decided I don't want to add the slip pocket. I think a nice big zipper is going to be perfect, and that'll give us a different way to turn the bag through instead of a big opening in the lining. I wanted to also include cutting out the main panel. So I've laid my main panel in the center of this quilted panel. You cannot really cut this on the fold because of the bulk of the foam. So I've marked my centers, laid this down, and I'm going to cut along the bottom, side, and top. You could definitely trace this out first and then cut it with scissors. Okay, don't cut the middle, that'd be bad. I'll line this up on those center marks. The pattern weights that I'm using are just heavy little discs that came with the Ditto projector, which is not really worth the money in my opinion, especially if you bought it full price. And I did, and I'm mad. Totally unrelated, sorry. Ugh, I want like a quilted jacket out of this fabric. It'd be so pretty. All right, so now we've got webbing marks to make as well. So I mark them according to the pattern piece. And then I'm going to take my ruler to mark out the other ones. So from the center. Okay. Okay, so I've got my center marks and where my webbing gets placed. This bag is so small compared to the big one. I love it. I hope you enjoyed the cutting video, and I will see you when it's time to sew it up.